So hello everyone, in this video we'll be practically learning CSS and how you can include CSS in your HTML pages that we'll be seeing in this video. So I'll be working with the Visual Studio Code, which is a coding editor. You can download it from the official website, which is code.visualstudio.com. You can download the editor from the website, and after downloading and installing that you can go into your working directory where you want to create your project, and there you can right click and you will see this open with code option. If you don't see that, then you can directly go into Visual Studio and you can open your project directory by clicking on open folder in Visual Studio. So there is one option here in the file. You can open this folder by clicking on it. So after opening your folder in Visual Studio is a great coding editor which helps in development, and it provides many extension features and many other features, which is very great when you are working with a web development project or a normal programming project. So that's a great working environment for yourself. So that's why I choose this one. Now, first of all, I'll be creating one index.html file where we'll be including CSS. So first, let me just create index.html. For example, I can write index.html here. I can remove this one. I can use this autocomplete feature. Maybe it's not coming. Tab. And then I have to write the title of the page. Maybe CSS intro. So we are actually learning CSS. So let me just create one heading here. In here, I can write it as heading 1 or maybe anything you want. So actually we'll learn how many types of CSS are there and how you can include them in HTML file. Let me just open it. Open with live server. You will see here. You just have to right click on the page and then you'll see this open with live server. You can open that in your browser, in your default browser. So it will be visible. You can see that heading 1 is there. Now I want to style this heading 1. So how can I style it? So there are different kind of styles we can use, but I'll be using actually the inline style first. So let me just add some comments. So we are using inline CSS. So this is one type of CSS which you can include in your element. For example, in this heading 1, I am writing style attribute. So this attribute allows us to write CSS in one line or in element. So we can specify the property and the value, which we will be learning soon. What is property and the value? Actually, property is the type of CSS you want to include and the value you want to include. So for example, if you want to color this heading 1 actually, so we'll be using a property of CSS which is color. So this should be same as like this which I have written here. So it should not be different. Now you can specify the value for the color or for the text color you want, for example red, and add or terminate it with the semicolon. After that, if I save this file again and if I go to the page, you will see that it became red now. Why it is happening? Because we have added the CSS property that it should be red. So it started taking that effect. If you inspect this element, if you inspect this element, this heading 1, you see that styling is affecting here. You can see that style is applied actually. Also, I can use the different ways. Similarly, you can add multiple properties in inline CSS as well. Like you can add background color you want. Let me just add uh, antique white. If I add this one, So you see that I added this dash because whenever a property has more than one word, you will separate that property with a minus or dash symbol. So that is a CSS rule. You have to remember that. And after terminating the CSS property, like the first property where the first property is terminated, termination means I have added this semicolon. Then after you can add the next property, otherwise that will not take any effect. Okay, so you can see that I have added the background and the next styling is also applied here. So this is what we add in CSS, and there are a lot of properties which we can add. For example, font family is there, font size is there. We'll be learning them categorically in the next videos on the or in the future videos. Let's just understand how you can add the CSS first. So this is one way of adding CSS, or like this is the inline way of adding CSS. Let me just create one more heading, which is heading 2. Inside that, I want to add the CSS by using the different type of CSS, which is actually internal CSS. So how can I style it with internal CSS? Let me just write internal CSS here. So this heading 2, I will design it with internal CSS. So let me just write heading 2 here. And for internal CSS, you have to go inside the head of your HTML page. And here you have to write one tag name, which is style, just like we added style attribute for styling. That's why we are adding style tag in here to apply the internal CSS feature of CSS. That will be allowing here, like we'll be writing the CSS here. Let me just first of all show you the syntax. First of all, you will be accessing the selector or the element in which you want to style. That selector can be of many different types. For example, class selector is there, ID selector is there, element selector is there. There are different kind of selectors. We'll be understanding them in the future videos. For now, we'll be just using the element selector, which is just you have to type the name on which element you want to style. So I want to style on this heading 2 actually. So I'll be writing just h2 here. And then the syntax follows with the curly brackets. Inside the curly bracket, you have to write all the CSS information or the CSS properties. So just like we did in here, we wrote some CSS property and the values. Then similarly, you have to add it here. For example, I want to give it a color, so I'll be using color property, and then I can give any value. For example, I can give it a blue value. So this is a first property. Similarly, you can add a background color, background dash color. So remember the separator, minus or dash symbol. I can give it a background color of aquamarine. So this is like similar to this, but we are doing it in internal CSS, right? You can make the separate property in a next line because it looks more clearer than this adding everything in one line. It looks more clearer and we can easily separate between the properties or with the different properties. So you should always make it into the next line. You can add it in one line, that will also work, but this is more clearer than that. So if I see it, so you can see the blue color and the background aquamarine color is already applied. If I inspect that element, so you will also find the same thing here, the CSS information. You can see that the style is added. So this we did with the internal CSS. So what is the other way of adding CSS? The last way and the most efficient way is adding CSS in a separate file. So that we call external CSS. Let me just create one more heading, lot of heading. So let me just add one external CSS, or first let me just add this heading and then we'll be adding that. In here I can specify the comment, which is external CSS. So we are using all type of CSS now in the same file. So I'll design this H3 with the help of external CSS file. We'll be adding that in here. So let me just write any file name. You can write style or any file name as you do in HTML files. You can name it anything, but the extension should follow this .css. So every file you write in the external CSS, in which file you want to write external CSS code, you have to end that file with the .css extension. Without that, your CSS will not work. If you link with the HTML, that will not work. Here you can specify the style information without any tag, because we are not in the HTML, so we'll not be opening any style or anything. We'll just be writing the tag and the CSS rules. So we are directly, you can consider internal and external are pretty much same, but in external we are not writing this tag. We're directly writing the CSS information, because they understand with this .css file. So we can specify the color. For example, I can specify the green color and the background color similarly. Let me just write aquamarine again. If I save this, nothing's gonna happen because we haven't linked this file. So you can see that heading 3 is as it is now without any styling. Now, how can we link both these files? With the help of link tag. So in the heading, you can specify the link tag, or you can simply write link, and your IDE or your Visual Studio Code will suggest you how you can style it. So okay, if it is in the same location, you can write the style.css in the same area. Otherwise, you can specify the folder name if it is there. I can leave it now because it is in the same location, so I'll be just writing the name and the extension. So this you have to do. Rel is attribute that specify you are adding CSS file, or you are adding the link of a CSS file. This tells the browser that. So now you can see that it is styled, the text is green and the background is aquamarine. So this is how we can add different type of CSS. One is inline CSS, the other one is internal and the external. In the next video, I'll be telling you in out of all of them which is more efficient, or which has the highest priority. So the more efficient is this one actually, external CSS, and the priority has some different kind of like levels. So that will be understanding in the next video. Thank you for watching. Let's meet in the another one.